Hi everyone, it's Kimber, the Study Abroad Specialist. In today's video, what I want to do, it's an audio only video today. So again, go ahead and put this on in the background while you're doing something. But I want to walk through and talk a little bit more about statement of purpose versus letter of motivation. This is a question that I get a lot when I'm working with students to try and distinguish what these two things mean because they actually are different. And as you're going through and writing these, which are usually a part of supporting your application for either coming to the US or going to Canada or overseas somewhere like the UK or Ireland or the Middle East, wherever you're going for study abroad in general, that you will see these terms. And I wanted to be able to break this down for you. The first thing that I wanted to do was to point you to the description where you can download a freebie that I have. And it's essentially a guided template for statement of purpose and letter of motivation. So it's something that you can at least use to take some tips that are going to elaborate from what we're talking about here today, and also to go ahead and just kind of start yourself off with whatever you want to do, knowing that you will likely write a lot of iterations on this. But I wanted to just provide something for you, so definitely check that out below. So to start out, why do these matter? It's really important to sort of think about that. And I just want to say that I do have a lot of empathy for people because I myself am professional communicator, professional writer, and so that's not something that I struggle with. But I do know that particularly for a lot of students, it's something that can be very terrifying because you're like, I'm not the best writer, and that it's going to be really scary. The first thing that I want to say to you is do not panic. And also the point that it's not just an essay, that there are points that you need to include and that it's really important and that it is a chance for you to be able to showcase yourself in a positive light, and so approach it from that way so that you can feel less nervous. But I just want to get that out of the way first because I know that writing can be really stressful for a lot of people. So before I dive into talking more about this, I did just want to go ahead and give a quick note about ChatGPT and all the other ones out there. And, my sort of stance on this has really softened over time. I mean, I work with kids all the time, as young as like 8 years old and as old as 30. And so I understand. And I mean, I'm not immune to this. I use AI myself in different ways. But I will just say that you need to be careful how you do this. And if you're in school anywhere, you probably have gotten this spiel before. But I will just say that it is an important tool. We know that it's something that is going to continue to grow over the next decades and will continue to take over, but that you need to be smart with it. So you don't need to be depending on ChatGPT or any of these other AI platforms to write your entire story. It's meant to be an enhancement or to sort of work in partnership with you. That's what I hear a lot of students say, that they like it because they can use it as a thought partner. They can use it as a springboard and as a thought board. I really like that idea, but don't just sort of plug in your details and then expect for that to work out for you. That is not a good idea. And it's not going to be authentic to who you are. And ultimately, it's not going to help you. So that's my only spiel about that. But I did just want to get that out of the way before we talk about the different elements of the statement of purpose and letter of motivation. So to start out by sort of thinking about the fact of different regions have different systems. So the US and Canada are a little bit more aligned in our both high school and college system, particularly for private high schools, in the way that we sort of like things compared to places in Europe, places in Asia, places in the Middle East, and the rest of the world. So for the US and Canada, the statement of purpose is what you're most likely going to see, and especially if you're applying to a graduate school. Now, if you're applying to a private high school or if you're applying to a just regular undergraduate college, they may call it statement of purpose. They may just call it a personal statement or a personal essay. So it's a little bit different, but you can sort of use it in the same vein. It sort of means the same ideology. Whereas in Europe, you're likely, or even the UK, you're likely going to see a letter of motivation. And so that is what we're going to be talking about. The other thing as well is that for major scholarships around the world, they usually want motivation letters. And I just want you to be able to understand what the differences are. So for statement of purpose, you want to think of this as a very formal, buttoned up, academic, very focused on career goals and how the program fits within your plan. So it's professional, it's structured in that way. So this tends to be a little bit more towards a sort of formal I won't say proposal, but it's in a way that is very sort of formalized and very sort of buttoned up. All T's have to be crossed and all of those different things. It's very common in the US, Canada, Australia, especially if you are going to be in a business track or a business school, PhD opportunities. It's going to be really important to understand that. So to sort of give you an idea of the flow of this particular paper, and you can see it in the download as well, but you're going to have an intro, and then you're going to have an academic background, and then after that you're going to have professional and research experience. Then after that you'll have what is your why, so you're talking more about that. You will then go into your goals, and then last but not least, you'll talk about the conclusion, so sort of wrapping it all up. And so it is, again, going to be a lot more formal than the letter of motivation. As I mentioned before, the letter of motivation is much more common in Europe, and I just like to say non-American, non-Western cultures. So in places in the Middle East, in Asia, in parts of Africa. And the letter of motivation is meant to be much more persuasive. And also, too, is going to be more about personal drive. So a little bit less on the academics and more about your personal drive and your personal values. They really want to sort of have you shine through as a human being and less about what you can do on paper, if that makes sense. And they want to see passion more than anything. And a lot of people say, well, how can I explain passion? You really have to be able to drive it home of why you are doing this without using a lot of, for the love of God, don't use a lot of filler words. It kills me, especially in papers when people use filler words because you're trying to take up space. It's a lot different in a conversation where it's more of a natural flow and people use filler words. But in an essay or in a paper that you're writing, don't use a lot of filler words. But I also too want to see your personal commitment. So you really want to build on sort of the personal storytelling of things. And this is something too that I know that if you're not a professional communicator, you're not someone that has done this a long time, that the idea of storytelling, you're like, well, how do I get from point A to point B to point C to the end? I can give you some tips on that because this is what I do all day, every day. So the main key points of storytelling is making sure that you start out and everything that you do is to get someone to the end point. And you want someone to either feel something or to take action or to, maybe just have a thought. And so in this particular case, you want them to feel excited about you, and you also too want them to take action to let you in the program. So you can think of it that way. And what you're doing is you're not necessarily giving them your entire life bio of when you were 5 you did this, and then when you were 7 you did this. What you're doing is you're trying to help them understand how you got to be the person on the paper in the room where they're reading it now, and what it means for you to be able to get in this particular program, get this scholarship. And so what you'll do is you'll start out with your introduction. So this is, why are you passionate about this? You don't want to beat around the bush. You want to get straight to the point. This is why I'm passionate about this. This is why I love this. This is why I want to talk about this. This is why I'm interested in this program, this scholarship. This is why I'm here. Then you want to go into your story of talking about your personal experience and your story and sort of what has brought you to this point. You then want to move into what is your fit. So fit is something that's going to be really important, especially if you're applying to competitive programs. They want to be able to understand what your fit is. And so you want to be able to explain that by not only understanding what your fit is from your personal perspective, but also understanding what they are looking for. So this is you going through and doing your research already, sort of figuring out what is the type of person that they accept to this particular program, and then sort of tying it together, again, telling that story of how you fit what they're looking for so that it matches. You then are sort of looking at future forecasting, future outlook of saying that now that I've talked about who I am, how I'm passionate, what I like to do, and how I fit in, this is what I'm excited about. So this is something where you're sort of teeing it up before the close, I like to say. And so before you actually close out anything, you are giving them something to say, like, oh, okay, like they are going to be the right fit for this, not just because they said they're going to be fitting in like this, but because I'm giving them something extra of showing like, and now I'm looking ahead because I'm already putting myself in the program and I'm excited of what I'm going to accomplish once I finish the program, once I get the scholarship. Here's what my, 5-year plan is. You can structure it however you want, but just sort of making sure that they can see like, okay, this person is prepared. They have a plan. That's only going to help you. And then last but not least, you will do a closer to just sort of wrap everything up. So, in summary for this, what I like to say is that the statement of purpose is here is my plan, and then the letter of motivation is here is my heart, because they are very different. Letter of motivation relies much more on passion and really sort of showing who you are, whereas the statement of purpose, they get glimpses of who you are, but it really is focused on what you've done on paper and sort of those more tangible things like grades and all of that that make the difference. So, more than anything, I just wanted you to be able to understand that so that you know what programs are looking for so that you can move forward and hopefully get in and accomplish your goals. So, go ahead again and download the freebie below. And thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.